Hello, I'm Susan King, the Dean of the School of Journalism and Mass Communication, and really thrilled to be able to welcome one of our graduates back again to talk about a book that has just been published, and it is a powerful book. I want to welcome Jim Wallace, class of 1964, who has had an illustrious career, but I'm just going to talk about the last one, where you served for more than 30 years because you were at the Smithsonian Institution, not a bad place to call home or work, for sure. And we're really the curator of the photo. It's got a longer title, but curator of photos is some of the most important of the Smithsonian Institution's American history, air, and space. Wow, 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 wow. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
And you were a major here. I just want to talk a little bit about when you came to the school, you knew you wanted to work in photography, right?
Yes, I had initially come to UNC having in mind going into radio and television, frankly. And during my freshman year, I started doing some work on the Daily Tar Heel. I had been a photographer for my high school yearbook, and it didn't take long for me to change my mind and go into journalism.
And what an illustrious career you had at the Daily Tar Heel, because right now we can see the work that you did in the Tar Heel, all those photographs you saved for all these years to create this book, Courage in the Moment. So you witnessed history, you documented history, and now have recorded history. You became really a photographer and a lousy student, as you say. So just give us a little bit idea of what you were really documenting in the 60s, early 60s.
In the early 60s, the staff of the Daily Tar Heel, editorial and news-wise, made the decision to cover the civil rights movement in Chapel Hill.
At home.
At home.
Right here.
First off, it was news. Anytime there's a march going down the middle of Franklin Street and traffic can't go by, it seemed like to us that it was newsworthy. But secondly, we had a limited number of black students on campus. But it seemed to us that if all students couldn't go across Franklin Street and go to the movies or eat anywhere they wanted to, that just wasn't right. Mm-hmm. And so after the civil rights movement began picking up in communities such as Chapel Hill, following the sit-in at the Woolworths lunch counter in Greensboro, we got to know the organizers of the meeting, of the movement, two of whom were students at UNC. Mm-hmm. As they went from picketing various restaurants to marching down the street, singing freedom songs, and pointing to segregated restaurants as they, walked by, we began to cover the movement. Wayne King, one of the first assignments Wayne gave me was to go out and photograph the civil rights movement. In the end, I shot a lot more photographs than we ever used in the Tar Heel. We were only 4 pages a day, and that was not the only news that was going on. There was traditional campus events too.
But you kept all those pictures. You didn't throw away the film. You kept it in a shoebox all these years.
Yes. They weren't exactly archived the way that they should have been, but they were saved in one form or another.
And when did you realize that you had a treasure trove that told a story of Chapel Hill and many communities that were fighting for the rights of all of its citizens, in a way?
Yes. I had a chance after I retired from the Smithsonian to go back and begin editing some of my old photographs and scanning them. Mm. And I exhibited a few pictures at the National Press Club during a members exhibit, which led to having a bigger exhibit at the Press Club, which led to the gentleman who wrote the text for this book, Paul Dixon, interesting Dover publishers into doing this particular book. And we've taken about 2 years to put it together, and I think they got it right.
They're stunning photographs, which I hope we'll be able to share with everyone now. If not, the book is on sale at the bookstore.
That is true.
But when you looked with the eye of somebody who had worked at the Smithsonian, at the work you did when you were a young man, what did you think? What did it say? It certainly recorded history, but what did you think?
Yeah, we didn't think it was so much history at the time as it was covering local events,
Yeah.
covering
A protest.
covering existing news, right? On the other hand, it has been said that today's news is tomorrow's history, and that is the way that it developed. And while I was at the Smithsonian, I was able to work with a number of people, especially in political history and some of the other divisions, in doing documentary photography in Washington of events that happened there. And it was just sort of a follow-up to doing what has amounted to documentary history of civil rights in Chapel Hill at that time.
What I found was the ordinariness of some of the people who were in these protests and meeting at the churches, you know, not dressed in sloppy, let's go out to the streets kind of clothes, but dressed in you know, skirts.
That's
and
right.
Shirts and, you know, khaki pants and that kind of thing. And you named this book The Courage in the Moment because you saw those people as really courageous in their communities.
Yes, I did. It is one thing to have a protest march against some event that is not local. It is, to my way of thinking, quite a different thing to become part of a protest movement aimed at changing a tradition that in the South had lasted since the end of slavery and beyond, and to not just protest segregation, but to protest segregation around the corner from where you lived and worked and prayed.
That took courage.
And that took courage because they were risking arrests, they were risking jobs, they were risking going to jail, and they were not just protesting against some abstract thought about we should not be doing in this country or another country or whatever. They were trying to work within their own community to get it changed.
There's so much I could ask you, and we don't have time to do all that, but I found horrific the pictures of the Ku Klux Klan. They didn't cover their faces for you. You were able to capture that, and it's very scary, and it was after the Civil Rights law passed. What was that like to be there?
That was, you described I'd been doing this for 30 years, and then prior to that, it's the only time I have really been scared doing anything. And another UNC graduate, Mickey Blackwell, who is now the Reverend Blackwell and heads the Baptist Children's Homes of North Carolina, we were roommates, and it was in the summer because his grades weren't much better than mine. He'd been working on the Tar Heel also. And we got a news release from the Klan that they were going to have a recruiting rally. Well, these are not the smartest people in the world. They assumed that we were going to give them coverage that would help them get more members. And we were able to get photographs of the entire cross-burning ceremony. And we were very glad to leave, and having talked with Mickey years later, I'm not quite sure we would ever have done it when we were older. Young and reckless, I suspect.
But I want to talk just a little, this is the last question, about student work being so strong, one, and two, being so important to history. Right now, our students are doing some stupendous work, and some people might say, oh, that's just students' work. Students' work can really be powerful work.
Yes, it can. And I think it has the advantage from several aspects. One is the aspect of having fresh minds, fresh thoughts, and fresh approaches. And had we all been 20 years older working for a major metropolitan paper, we probably wouldn't have risked our whatever to go out and do the coverage we did. Secondly, I think today's students are in many ways more visually attuned, and equipment has become, everyone with a cell phone can take pictures now. And the idea of being able to use that technology as a student and to be able to produce photographs that technically are as good as you can get anywhere else, and being able to go out and get stories that people who otherwise had ignored or hadn't even thought about. I think gives students a great opportunity at this school and others to be able to go out and do work that may not get a whole lot of publication at the time, but certainly over time we'll be able to go back and I had some students look at some of these photographs and want to know where they were taken, and then they went back out and took photographs of that venue today just so they could put it up on their websites.
The past and the future.
The past and the future. Yeah. And I think that given everything that has happened in media in general, and the changes that I am a very bad predictor of where things were going, and if I really knew, I'd be doing this interview from my mansion in a hill someplace. But it is a matter of being able to think of new ways to do things, and none of that is. It's easy to ignore that kind of student work, and it's easy to ignore things that none of the local papers were covering the movement very much. I don't know if they were afraid of losing advertising or they just didn't think it was that important. And for the reasons I've already stated, they did.
Well, I'm just glad that I can find that the tradition of excellence and the tradition of journalistic determination and soul, observation and documentation and fairness, and just recording our time started way before my time as dean. Because I think it's important for the students to know that a Jim Wallace, class of '64, has produced something important when he was a student, and perhaps even more important as a graduate. Thanks for contributing to the North Carolina story, to Chapel Hill story, and to this school story.
It is great being back at the school, and I'm glad I could bring some of the work from the '60s back and share it.
Important for our students to see it as well. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.